Okay, guys, this is part two of our study review for exam number 8. Make sure that you watch part 1, which talks about use of force. Part 3, that will be lengthy quite a bit, so grab you some coffee because it's going to be 60 some odd questions that we'll need to go through dealing with crisis intervention. And then part 4, which is talk about some of the questions y'all have already had in previous exams. At least once. And if I stumble along, it's about 6:30 in the morning when I'm trying to record this for y'all. So there are some key principles of the critical thinking, critical decision making model. Be aware of what those key principles are. And it's going to have a question asking you which of those that are listed there is not one of those. It's one of those except questions. All the below are the following except questions. Are police ethics a part of that key principle? Of course it is. The values of the police agency, your values of your police agency, most agencies have a value statement along with a mission statement. So yeah, you can consider that. What about proportionality? Yeah, that's probably a key principle. This is 27.1, by the way, the T code guide. If you're kind of using that as a guide to study. Of course, what about the sanctity of human life? The sanctity of human life. Yeah, that's important. That's very important. What about your personal convictions? Yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah, we may have good personal convictions. But that's not one of the key principles because some of us don't have good personal convictions, of course. But that's not one of those. So be aware of that question. 27.2, be familiar with the 5 steps of critical decision making model. What are the 5 steps there? Collect information. Yeah. Assess situation, threats, and risk. Assess what's going on. What's the threats, what's the risk. Consider your police powers and your agency policy. What can you do and what your department allows you to do. 4, identify options and determine the best course of action. What are my choices here, and what's the best one to pick. And of course, review and reassess. And so be familiar with those 5 steps of the critical decision model. 27.3 of the TCOL guide there is talking about assisting officers in explaining our actions after an incident to provide a structured, rational explanation, which increases credibility is a what of the critical decision making model. Is it a step in it? Is it a layer in it? Or is it a benefit in it? And I think if you look at the 27.3 of the TCO in your notes, you'll find that it's, of course, it's a benefit. Explaining our actions after the incident and to provide a structured, rational explanation. We did use of force training with our TJC Police Department yesterday. And one of the things we talked about, of course, was when you have a use of force situation you have to use whatever level of force it may be, that you have to document everything, of course, that you want to articulate it in specificity. In other words, write detailed reports and explain what you did and why you did it. So it kind of goes along with that last question there. When we're talking about behaviors that are associated with someone who's experiencing a behavioral crisis, look at 27.5. What are some of those behaviors? Are they coherent? Now they're going to lack some coherence there. Are they typically agitated? Not always, but yeah, that's a pretty good. That's a good sign there. What about poor hygiene? You may not think that, but that's something to consider. Poor hygiene. So be familiar what those behaviors are. Which of those 3 are, or are they all 3 behaviors of someone who's experiencing a behavioral crisis episode? 27.6 of the TCO guide talks about principles and best practices for effectively responding to a person in behavioral crisis, and it's going to ask you to include all the following except what. And so you're going to have to pick which one of these is not one of those. Is your mission to diagnose or treat or solve problems? Okay, that's it's not our mission. And so be careful about that answer there. Our mission is not to diagnose. So that's that's a key principle. Be very careful of that word there, or that not word in there. Try to get a person to a state where they can function in better reason, where voluntary compliance can be achieved. Of course, that's going to be one of those. The top priority is to verbally diffuse and stabilize the situation. Absolutely. What about completing the encounter as fast as possible? No, take your time, because we're going to see a question in just a second where that's important. We don't want to rush the situation. So take your time. So obviously, those principles, best practices, which one of those four choices of answers is not one of those? And I would think if you talk about our answer at the complete encounter as fast as possible, or to complete the encounter as fast as possible, then that would be the good choice there. Talking about some common tips and techniques, of course, for engaging and making a connection with the person who you are dealing with in a behavioral crisis. It's going to have you some choices here of what are some of the common tips. And we talked about one of the first possible answers is don't rush the situation. Unless, of course, again, immediate actions required, don't rush the situation. Take your time. So is that a common tip? Probably so. Active listening. Again, active listening is important. Don't be passive, but be active. Really listen to what's going on. More often than not, a person's going to tell you what's wrong. They're not going to come out and say, hey, this is what's wrong with me, but through their communication and their conversation with you, you should be able to figure out, hey, there's something going on and what it is. So yeah, active listening is important. What about body language? Body language, not only their body language for our safety, but also our body language is very important. So we want to watch our body language. We have a bad habit. I was talking yesterday in our training how our nonverbal communication. I have a habit when I'm in uniform of putting my hand kind of over my weapon. Not necessarily holding it. It's just put our male stance. Putting our hands on our hips. Bad habit of doing that, and I have to consciously stop myself from doing that. So we got to be very wary of that. So are those all three common tips and techniques? Of course they are. So look for those being like all the above, maybe. The value of an emotional rational thinking scale. Be familiar with the value of the emotional rational thinking scale. It's 27.8 of the TCO guide. As emotions lower, rational thinking declines. As emotions rise, rational thinking increases. Or how about as emotions rise, rational thinking declines? I think that's pretty common sense stuff. When you're emotional, we don't think very well. We say, if you ever been into an argument, especially if you're married or you have a significant other, a lot of times we get mad, get into an argument there, and emotions are getting the better of us. We a lot of times say stupid stuff. So we're not thinking clear. So be very wary of that value of emotional rational thinking scale, which one includes. That's 27.8. 27.10 talks about the 80-20 rule. What does the 80 refer to? When we're talking about communications, what does the 80 refer to? I didn't hear you. Okay. Listening. 27.11. Some key non-verbal communication skills that affect interactions with others. Tell me, there's a list here, or going to be a list in the questions of which one of them are key non-verbal communication skills. Be able to tell me which one of these is not going to be one of those. Projecting the right body language. Again, we just talked about that. Making eye contact. You have to be very wary of certain types of cultures. Eye contact. I learned this in interrogation, one of my interrogation and body language schools. Eye contact's not always a must, but be wary. By the way, be wary of way too much eye contact. That has kind of the opposite on there. But make eye contact with somebody. If you're not looking at somebody and you're trying to talk to them or you're trying to listen to them, they're going to get, that's bad body language actually. What about modulating your tone of voice? That's, we talked about that use of force scale with the bottom typically being our presence. Then verbal communication. We can get a lot done, or we can de-escalate, or we can escalate just by the tone of our voice. So, is that one of those? Or how about using closed hand gestures? Closed hand gestures. I don't think if you'll go back and look at your notes that you'll find that that's a very key nonverbal communication skill you want to practice. 27.12 talks about skills that are critical for diffusing tense situations and, of course, gaining voluntary compliance. Which one of these is going to be one of those skills? Are we going to repeatedly shout commands at somebody? That's not really one of those as far as diffusing a situation, especially a tense situation. You need to calm down, sir. You need to calm down. Is that going to diffuse it? Is that going to be a skill that it's critical for that? And I don't think so. What about just immediately going from 0 to 100? In other words, go from 0 to using force immediately to, I'm tired of this. I've got lunch for day. I got a lunch date. Boom, using force. Nah, I don't think so. Or how about asking open-ended questions, especially the kind of what's going on. How are you doing today? How's this person upset you? What has upset you? What about that? Asking open-ended what questions and how questions and other similar questions. Is that a skill? I think you would look back at 2712. You'll find that that's probably your best answer there. 2712 also sticking with that again. Which one of these is not a critical communication skill for diffusing a tense situation? Encourage conversation, but don't dominate it. Establish rapport. Provide options. Or whispering and laughing with other officers. I don't think that, we can do that whispering and laughing with after the fact, after the situation calmed down, but that's not a good critical communication skill we want to have in diffusing a situation. 2713 talks about an adversarial phrase. Which of the following is an adversarial phrase? What can I do to help you? I don't know if that's necessarily adversarial. How may I help you? Again, I don't think that's too adversarial. Or what's your problem? Yeah, that's kind of adversarial there, I think. So be aware of that. It's 27.13. Sticking with 27.13, it talks about some alternatives to a hostile sounding phrase. Which one of these is an alternative to that? Calm down. Shut up. Just chill. I will say this. That is not a phrase I use with my wife, and I want her to calm down, or she's going to tell me to chill. So probably if it doesn't work on me and my wife, it's probably not going to work on you out there on the street. Or how about, hey, I see that you're upset. Hey, please tell me what's going on. Tell me about it. Yeah, talk to me. Is that an alternative to hostile sounding phrases? I think if you look at 2713, you'll find that that's probably a good example there. 2715 of the T code, when you're responding to and managing a critical incident, the use of critical decision-making models suggests that you should do what? Or which of the following, actually, I guess, would be one of those, or all the above, so to speak. Which one is it? Well, none of the above, actually. Do we want to collect information? Yeah, probably so. Do we want to prepare ourselves? Yeah. Do we want to use a tactical pause? Probably so. So I would think if you look at that again, responding to and managing a critical incident, the use of the critical decision-making model suggests that we should do what? How about maybe all three of those? Collect information, prepare ourselves, and use a tactical pause. Talking about a key tactical role. Talking about a key tactical role when we're responding to a critical incident as a team. Which of these are going to be a key tactical role? The only role required is designated as a supervisor. You know what? I don't know. Who cares who's the boss out there? Is that something we're going to concentrate on? No, of course not. Be honest with you. The person who is the designated supervisor because they got stripes on their sleeve or something like that. And sometimes that doesn't matter. They're not really the person who's really in charge. The only role required is designated a medical officer. Well, that might be important. I don't know if that's a key tactical role. Or all officers should give commands until it's determined who the suspect will listen to. I don't know about you, but if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 people that are trying to communicate with you, unless you are, I guess you have the ability, I'm going to pay attention to one person. That's probably not a good tactical role there. Or how about only one officer should be communicating with the subject? I think if you think about it, it's pretty much common sense. The sun's coming up over in the glass here, so sorry about the view here. I'm trying to get this all in before I leave town, so you guys will have something to go by. You've been doing great on your test. I'm not taking any one bit of credit for our reviews, because when I've been in person, y'all know the answers, or at least somebody knows the answers because you're shouting them out. But I do want to make sure that you get something to study by. 26.17 of the T-Code guide talks about maintaining a position of advantage in a safety zone is a concept of what? Maintaining a position of advantage in a safety zone is a concept of what? Cover, concealment, tactical concealment, or tactical repositioning? Take a look at that. I think the answer will be probably pretty obvious. Tactical repositioning, by the way. When officers, this is 26.17 also, in fact the next couple of questions are, when officers in close quarters with a potential threat and we feel pressed for time, a lot of times options dwindle, kind of like the 2-minute offense, so to speak, in a football game. The formula that is used, be familiar with the formula that is used to multiply options. Is it distance plus communication equals time? Is it demands versus options? Demands plus options equals termination? Is it demands versus communication equals resolution? Or is it distance and cover equals time? Distance and cover, or distance plus cover equals time. So I think again, if you'll take a look at 26.17 in your notes, you'll probably come up with the right answer there. Sticking with 26.17, you guys, an officer, have to be prepared to act as soon as you arrive at a scene. We're seeing, even today on the news early this morning, some very troubling video or still pictures coming out of the school shooting in Uvalde. That is probably going to be a major lesson to all of us. I think there's going to be some heads rolled down there, unfortunately, for some officers, especially the chief. But we've got to be able to react as soon as we arrive at a scene. But remember, if there's no immediate threat and we have time to slow the situation down, we should use that to our advantage. And so what is this concept known as? We've kind of talked about this in another question. What is this ability that, because there's not an immediate threat and we have time to slow the situation down, that we should use that to our tactical advantage? Is it planning? Is it preparation? Is it tactical communications? Or is it tactical pause? Tactical pause. Yeah, that's something that maybe, because I don't know if we'll ever know the whole story in Uvalde, but that is what's been kind of reported over the last month, that the chief was in there and was presuming, or maybe better assuming, and we know what that means, that this was now had turned from an active shooter to a hostage situation. Unfortunately, it was and I'm sure y'all talked about this in your training with your instructors, but this is something that when it's all said and done, again, will be a major lesson learned. But that's at least what kind of it was reported from by the Uvalde police campus ISD police chief, that he thought it had gone from an active shooter to a hostage situation, and that would be an example of a tactical pause. But again, you've got to have you got to have all the facts, and unfortunately, I don't think that chief had all the facts. But who knows? We'll wait to see there. And then we got two more questions, and this will be the end of the end of this section here, which is I think the video number 2, the de-escalation. Be familiar with it's 27.18, the after-action review of a critical incident. What is an effective after-action review of a critical incident used for? When we have an incident, whether it is the courthouse shooting a number of years ago here, whether it's the Uvalde school shooting, whether it's the shooting about 6-7 years ago up in Dallas during the Black Lives Matter march, with the guy that with the rifle that took out 5 Dallas PD, or 4 Dallas PD and a DISD officer, and shot several others. What do we do there in that after action review? Do we look to uncover and document strengths and weaknesses of our response to the incident? Do we use it as a part of a continuous learning and improvement process? Do we use it to improve future performance, or do we use all 3 of those? And I think if you look at 27.18 and you think back to your discussions in class, I think you'll find that we're going to use all 3 of those. We do want to uncover and document our strengths and our weaknesses. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? And then, of course, constantly learning from our mistakes and constantly improving on both our mistakes for doing better, but also improving, even if we can, on what we did right. And of course, taking all of that to lead us to our future performance. And then the last question in the section that's going to be talking about de-escalation, an after review, or an AAR, is designed to answer questions contained in what? Is it your offense report? Is it your arrest report? Is it your agency policy manual? Or is it the critical decision making model? An after action review is designed to answer questions contained in what? Obviously, we've been talking about the critical decision making model. So again, this is about 20 questions on de-escalation. So again, take some time to look at it. I know I'm boring as can be in person. I'm doubly boring on video, but hey, I'm trying to get you guys to continue your good work on the exams. This is part 2. Make sure you catch 1, 3, and 4 before your test next week. Good luck to you, and I'll see you when I get back.